I always believed in fairy tales, the kind where love conquered all, where trust was the foundation of every relationship, and where happily ever afters actually existed. For the longest time I thought I had that. I was wrong. My marriage, once built on love and promises, was nothing more than a fragile illusion, and I was about to wake up to the cold, bitter reality. It all began subtly, almost too quietly for me to notice. The shift in his gaze, the way his fingers lingered a little too long on his phone screen, the distant way he kissed me goodnight. Small things. Insignificant things. Or so I told myself. But even the smallest cracks, when ignored, can shatter the strongest of walls. Jacob and I had been married for 10 years. A full decade of laughter, struggles, and memories woven together like an intricate tapestry. We had built a life, our home, our routines, our inside jokes. I knew him better than anyone, or at least I thought I did. Then she came along. Her name was Olivia. She was young, beautiful, and exuded a kind of effortless charm that made people gravitate toward her. I met her once by accident, or so Jacob claimed. He had introduced her as a colleague, his voice casual, his expression unreadable. I should have sensed the danger then. I should have noticed the way he looked at her, as though she was a secret he was dying to keep. I still remember that evening vividly. We had gone to a small dinner party hosted by one of Jacob's work friends. The room was filled with people, yet somehow his focus remained on her. I watched as he laughed a little too easily at her jokes, leaned in a little too close, his eyes lighting up in a way they hadn't for me in months. My stomach churned, but I swallowed the unease. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was overthinking, overanalyzing. But deep down I knew. A woman always knows. Days turned into weeks, and his behavior became impossible to ignore. The late-night work calls, the text he never let me see, the way he would return home smelling like a perfume that wasn't mine. My heart clenched every time, but I told myself to be patient, to give him space. After all, marriage was about trust, wasn't it? Then one evening everything changed. I had spent the day cleaning the house, trying to distract myself from the creeping doubts that had taken root in my mind. When Jacob finally walked through the front door, I turned to him with a forced smile, but he barely looked at me. "We need to talk," he said, his tone neutral, too neutral. I felt my pulse quicken. "Okay." He exhaled deeply and ran a hand through his hair. "I don't think I can do this anymore." The world around me tilted. "Do what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. This marriage." His words hung between us like an open wound. I blinked, my mind racing to make sense of what I had just heard. "Jacob, what are you saying?" He avoided my gaze, his hands clenching into fists. "I love her, Anna." My breath caught in my throat. It was one thing to suspect, to have doubts clawing at your sanity, but to hear it confirmed, to hear him say it so casually, was a different kind of pain. It was the kind that burned through your soul, leaving nothing but ash behind. "You love her?" I echoed, disbelief lacing my words. He nodded as if it was the simplest thing in the world. "I didn't mean for this to happen. But Olivia. He makes me feel alive. I haven't felt this way in a long time. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. And what about me?" My voice wavered. "What about the years we've spent together? What about everything we built?" He sighed. "I care about you, Anna. I always will. But love changes. Love changes." The words sliced through me like a knife. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand how he could do this to me. But instead I forced myself to breathe. "So what now? Are you asking for a divorce?" He hesitated, and that hesitation sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over me. "No," he finally said. "I want us to try something different." I frowned. "Different how?" "I want an open marriage." The words sounded foreign, as if they didn't belong in the same sentence as my husband's voice. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to tell me this was some kind of twisted joke. But he was serious. He wanted to stay married to me while openly seeing Olivia. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. A bitter laugh escaped me. "You want me to just sit back and watch while you play house with another woman?" He winced. It's not like that, Anna. This doesn't have to be the end for us. I still love you, but I love her too. I don't want to lose either of you. My stomach twisted in revulsion. You don't want to lose me? I repeated, my voice thick with anger. You already have. I turned away from him, my hands trembling. I had spent years being the devoted wife, the woman who put her husband first, who fought for their love. And yet here I was being handed an ultimatum wrapped in selfishness. I had a choice to make. I could stay and accept this twisted arrangement, allowing him to break my heart a little more each day. Or I could walk away and reclaim the parts of myself that he had slowly chipped away. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. If he thought he could shatter me, he was wrong. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. The weight of Jacob's words lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. My hands trembled as I clutched the edge of the kitchen counter, struggling to process what he had just said. An open marriage. He wanted to have me and her at the same time, as if I were nothing more than a convenience, a comfortable safety net in case his fantasy didn't work out. I turned to face him, my chest rising and falling with the force of my anger. Do you even hear yourself, Jacob? My voice was low but laced with barely contained fury. You're asking me to be okay with you cheating on me, to stand by while you parade around with her. He sighed, running a hand through his hair as if I were the one being unreasonable. It's not cheating if it's out in the open, he said, his voice calm, calculated. I just don't want to lose what we have, Anna. But at the same time, I can't ignore what I feel for Olivia. His words made me sick. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. There was no shame, no regret, no desperate attempt to make things right. He had already made his decision. And the worst part? He expected me to just go along with it. I shook my head, my throat burning from the emotions welling up inside me. How long? Jacob frowned. What? How long have you been seeing her? I demanded, stepping forward. How long have you been lying to me? His jaw clenched. It's been a few months. A few months. So all those late nights at work, all those unexplained disappearances, the distant look in his eyes, it had all been because of her. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. And you never thought to tell me? My voice cracked. You just decided to string me along until you could find the perfect moment to spring this on me? His expression hardened. I didn't plan for this to happen, Anna. I didn't wake up one day and decide to fall in love with someone else. It just happened. I let out a bitter laugh. Right. Because love just happens, doesn't it? You don't have to make choices, you don't have to be faithful, you don't have to fight for what you already have. I glared at him, my vision blurred by unshed tears. That's a coward's excuse, Jacob. His face darkened. I'm trying to be honest with you. I could have kept lying, kept sneaking around behind your back. But I didn't. Doesn't that count for something? I stared at him, searching for any trace of the man I once loved. The man who had promised me forever. But all I saw was a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. You don't get points for telling the truth after months of deceit, I said, my voice cold. You don't get to ask me to accept this mess you've created and expect me to be okay with it. Jacob took a deep breath as if trying to remain patient. I'm not asking you to be okay with it right away. Just think about it. Think about it. As if this was some kind of business arrangement, some logical decision I could weigh the pros and cons of. I don't need to think about it, I snapped. Because my answer is no. Silence stretched between us. Jacob's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. So what then? He asked, his voice laced with frustration. You want a divorce? The word sent a shiver down my spine. I had never considered divorce before, never thought I would be the kind of woman who had to make that choice. But now it felt like the only option I had left. I inhaled sharply, my heart pounding in my chest. I want a husband who loves me enough to choose me. Someone who doesn't ask me to share him. I took a step back, my arms wrapping around myself. And if you can't be that man, then maybe I have no choice. Jacob's eyes flickered with something. Was it regret? Guilt? I couldn't tell. I don't want to lose you, Anna, he murmured, his voice softer now. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then why did you let yourself fall for her? He had no answer. That night I slept in the guest room. Or at least I tried to. The ache in my chest was unbearable, my mind racing with memories of the life we had built together. The way he used to look at me. The way he used to hold me as if I were the most precious thing in his world. When had that changed? When had I become not enough? Tears slipped down my cheeks as I curled up beneath the blankets, clutching a pillow as if it could somehow fill the emptiness inside me. Morning came too soon, and with it the crushing weight of reality. I avoided Jacob as I got ready for the day, my movements robotic, my thoughts tangled in the storm of emotions raging inside me. He was already in the kitchen when I walked in, sipping his coffee like nothing had happened. Like our marriage wasn't hanging by a thread. I paused in the doorway, my stomach twisting. I need some time, I said finally. He set his mug down. Time for what? To think, Elite. Because the truth was, I already knew what I had to do. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Jacob nodded as if he understood. Take all the time you need. But we both knew time wouldn't fix this. Something had broken between us. Something that couldn't be repaired with empty promises and desperate compromises. And for the first time in my life I realized I had a choice. I didn't have to stay. I didn't have to let him dictate the terms of our marriage, of my life. I could walk away. And maybe, just maybe, I would be stronger for it. But walking away was never that simple, was it? Because love doesn't just disappear overnight. And heartbreak lingers. The silence between us was louder than any argument we had ever had. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Jacob moved through the house as if he were a guest rather than my husband. I could feel his presence, his unspoken words hanging in the air like a suffocating cloud, but I refused to be the one to break the silence. I was done fighting for something that was already broken. But he didn't leave. I had expected him to pack his bags, to walk out the door and straight into her arms, but he stayed. As if waiting. For what? For me to change my mind? To accept his twisted offer of an open marriage? It disgusted me how easily he could shift between worlds, our home, our marriage, and the life he was building with her. Olivia. Her name alone made my stomach churn. I had spent nights trying to understand. How did it happen? When did I stop being enough? Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? But no matter how many ways I twisted the questions in my mind, I kept coming back to the same painful truth. It wasn't about me. It was about him. Jacob had made his choice. He had stepped outside of our vows, our promises, and now he was trying to manipulate me into staying while he had his affair out in the open. But I wasn't going to play by his rules. I woke up that morning with a new kind of clarity. It was time to take my life back. Jacob was sitting at the kitchen table, his fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee, scrolling through his phone. I wondered if he was texting her. If he had seen her last night after I went to bed. The thought made my hands shake with rage, but I steadied myself. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I'm going out, I said, grabbing my keys. Jacob glanced up. Where? I let out a humorless laugh. Does it matter? His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I walked out without another word, my heart pounding as I stepped into my car. I hadn't left the house much since that night, too consumed by the weight of his betrayal, but today was different. I wasn't just leaving the house. I was leaving him. I didn't know where I was going at first. I just drove, letting the road stretch out before me like a path to a new beginning. I ended up at my sister's house. Emily opened the door, her eyes widening when she saw me. Anna. The moment I saw her, the dam broke. Tears welled in my eyes as she pulled me into a tight embrace. What happened? She asked, leading me inside. I didn't know where to start. How do you tell someone that the person you trusted most in the world had shattered you? That the man you built a life with was now asking you to share him with someone else? I sat on her couch, staring at my hands. Jacob cheated on me, I said finally. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. And now he wants an open marriage. Emily's face darkened. Are you serious? I nodded. She let out a sharp breath, her fingers curling into fists. That bastard. I let out a shaky laugh. Yeah. She sat beside me, her expression softening. What are you going to do? The question weighed heavily on me. I had spent so much time trapped in the pain of his betrayal that I hadn't allowed myself to truly consider what came next. I swallowed hard. I think I need to leave him. Emily's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Then do it. The certainty in her voice surprised me. Just like that. She nodded. Just like that. He doesn't deserve you, Anna. He made his choice and now it's time for you to make yours. I exhaled slowly, her words sinking in. I had spent years making sacrifices for Jacob, molding myself into the wife he needed, putting him first in everything. But what had that gotten me? A broken heart. I wasn't going to let him decide my future anymore. When I returned home that evening, Jacob was waiting for me in the living room. His expression unreadable, his hands tucked into his pockets. Where were you? He asked, his voice tight. I crossed my arms. I don't have to answer to you anymore. A flicker of something, anger? Fear? Crossed his face. Anna, come on. Don't be like this. I let out a bitter laugh. Be like what, Jacob? Be upset that my husband cheated on me? That you're asking me to accept something I will never be okay with? He took a step closer. I didn't want to hurt you. I scoffed. That's the thing, Jacob. You did hurt me. And you keep hurting me every single day you choose her over me. His jaw tightened. I never said I was choosing her over you. I met his gaze, my heart pounding. But you already did. Silence. I took a deep breath. I deserve better than this. Better than you. Jacob's eyes widened. Anna, I want a divorce. The words left my mouth with a finality that sent a shiver down my spine. His face paled. You don't mean that. I lifted my chin. I do. He reached for me, but I took a step back. You don't get to have it both ways, Jacob. You don't get to destroy our marriage and expect me to pick up the pieces while you run off with her. His lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Fear. He had expected me to bend, to compromise, to let him have his way. He had thought I would be too broken, too weak to walk away. But he was wrong. I turned and walked toward our bedroom, already making plans in my mind. I would pack my things, find a lawyer, and start the process of reclaiming my life. I stood in the middle of our bedroom, my heart pounding as I stared at the suitcases on the bed. Clothes lay folded in neat piles, yet my hands hesitated as they hovered over them. The weight of this moment pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. This was it. The final step toward leaving behind the life I had built with Jacob. I thought it would be easier. That after everything he had done, after the betrayal, the lies, the audacity of asking me to accept an open marriage, I would feel nothing but relief. But grief had a funny way of sneaking up on you. It wasn't just him I was leaving. I was leaving behind years of memories. The whispered conversations at midnight, the lazy Sunday mornings tangled in bed, the way he used to look at me like I was his whole world. But that world no longer existed. He had burned it down the moment he chose her. A knock at the door made me flinch. Anna. Jacob's voice was softer than usual, uncertain. I steeled myself before opening it. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You're really doing this? His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded. Yes. His eyes dropped to the suitcase behind me, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. You don't have to go. I let out a humorless laugh. Yes, I do. Jacob exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I didn't want it to be like this. I crossed my arms. How did you want it to be, Jacob? You thought I'd just accept sharing you? That I'd sit at home while you ran off to her, pretending like I was okay with it? He looked away, shame flickering across his face. I thought maybe with time you'd understand. Understand what? I snapped. That I was never enough for you? His eyes shot back to mine, wide with something I couldn't quite place, guilt, regret, maybe even fear. You were enough, Anna, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You always were. Then why wasn't I only enough? My voice cracked. Jacob flinched, but he had no answer. And that was all I needed to know. I turned back to the suitcase, zipping it shut. I'll send someone for the rest of my things. His hands clenched at his sides. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. He swallowed, nodding stiffly. Right. For a moment neither of us spoke. The weight of 10 years hung between us, a silent goodbye wrapped in all the words we would never say. Then I grabbed my suitcase, stepped past him and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I drove straight to Emily's house. The moment she opened the door and saw the suitcase in my hand, she pulled me into a hug. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Those words unraveled something in me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself cry. Not for him. Not for what I was leaving behind. But for me. For the woman who had spent years sacrificing, compromising, bending herself to fit into a marriage that had taken more than it had given. I wasn't that woman anymore. I don't know what comes next, I admitted, my voice shaking. Emily smiled, squeezing my hands. You start over. The thought terrified me. But deep down, beneath the fear, there was something else. Hope. I had expected Jacob to reach out. To call, to beg me to come back, to fight for what he had lost. But days passed, then weeks, and there was nothing. Part of me hated him for that. For how easily he let me go. But then one evening my phone rang. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Against my better judgment, I answered. Silence. Then finally his voice, low and strained. I messed up, Anna. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. I know. I thought she was what I wanted. His voice was hoarse, almost broken. But I was wrong. I exhaled slowly. And now you realize that? Yes. Pause. It wasn't worth it. None of it. I lost you and nothing about that feels right. For a fleeting moment I felt something stir inside me. The part of me that had once loved him so deeply. The part of me that had wanted to hear those words. But it was too late. You didn't lose me, Jacob, I said, my voice steady. You let me go. Silence. I don't expect you to forgive me, he finally said. But I needed you to know that I regret it. All of it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I hope you find what you're looking for. And with that I ended the call. For the first time in a long time I felt free. Truly free. And I knew in that moment that I was never going back. The night after Jacob's call, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying his words. I lost you and nothing about that feels right. Once those words would have shattered me. Once I would have taken them as a sign that there was still something worth saving. But now they felt like closure. The pain of his betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. It no longer dictated my every thought, my every movement. It was simply a scar, a reminder of what I had survived. And for the first time in a long time I felt something I hadn't in years. Possibility. The next morning I woke up with a sense of determination I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just moving on, I was reclaiming myself. Emily sat across from me at the breakfast table, sipping her coffee as she studied me. You look different today. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? She tilted her head, a slow smile forming. Lighter. Stronger. I let out a small chuckle. That's because for the first time in a long time I finally feel like I know what I want. And what's that? I set my mug down, looking her in the eyes. To start over. To stop living in the shadow of what Jacob did to me. To rebuild my life on my terms. Emily grinned. Now that's what I like to hear. But saying it was one thing. Doing it was another. Where did I even begin? Step one was finding a place of my own. I had spent weeks at Emily's house, grateful for her support, but I needed my own space. A place where I wasn't defined by my past. By the end of the week I found it, a small apartment in the heart of the city. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with a tiny balcony, but when I stepped inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The day I moved in, I stood in the middle of the empty living room taking it all in. No memories of Jacob. No reminders of betrayal. Just a blank slate. My new beginning. I took a deep breath and smiled. I knew I had to see Jacob again at least once to finalize everything. Divorce papers had been drawn up and now all that was left was to sign them. When I arrived at our old house, the sight of it sent a pang through my chest. This was the home where I had once built a future. Now it was just a place I used to live. Jacob opened the door looking worse than I had ever seen him. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and a weariness that made him look older. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then finally he stepped aside, letting me in. I walked past him, keeping my expression unreadable. "Do you have the papers?" He nodded, leading me to the dining table. They were already there waiting. I picked up the pen, hovering over the dotted line. "Is there anything else you want to say before I sign?" Jacob exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. "I know I don't deserve another chance. And I won't ask for one." I stayed silent, waiting. "But I want you to know. I wish I had chosen differently." His voice cracked. "I wish I had chosen you." Something inside me clenched. Not because I still wanted him, but because deep down I had once wanted him to say those words. But it was too late. I smiled sadly, shaking my head. "Jacob, the problem was never that you didn't choose me." I met his gaze, steady and unwavering. "The problem was that I had to wait to be chosen at all." His face crumbled, but I didn't let myself feel sympathy. I signed my name, the ink drying on the last piece of our marriage. Then without another word I stood and walked out the door. And this time I never looked back. The finality of the divorce didn't hit me right away. It was strange, after so many months of pain, of struggling to accept that my marriage was over, I had expected some dramatic moment of realization. A moment where everything clicked into place. But instead it was quiet. Like the slow exhale after holding your breath for too long. Like stepping into the sunlight after being trapped in the dark. The first thing I did in my new apartment was hang a single framed quote on the wall. "Sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go. It's learning to start over." And that's exactly what I was doing. Starting over. Not as Jacob's wife. Not as the woman who had been betrayed. But as me. Anna. A woman who had loved, who had lost, but who had found herself again. And this was only the beginning. The days following the finalization of my divorce were strangely quiet. There was no grand epiphany, no overwhelming wave of relief, just a calm stillness, like the eye of a storm after months of chaos. For the first time in years I was truly alone. But I wasn't lonely. I was rediscovering myself in ways I hadn't expected. I woke up when I wanted, cooked meals only for myself, and filled my time with things that had nothing to do with Jacob. I started reading again, books I had abandoned in the past because he never had the patience for them. I took long walks through the city, letting myself get lost in streets I had never explored before. And for the first time in a long time I wasn't afraid of the unknown. Because this time the unknown belonged to me. One evening as I sat on my tiny apartment balcony sipping tea, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Jacob, can we talk?" My fingers hovered over the screen. I had expected him to reach out eventually, but I hadn't decided what I would do when he did. Curiosity warred with indifference. What more could he possibly have to say? Did he want closure? Forgiveness? A chance to rewrite the past? I took a deep breath and typed back. "Me, there's nothing left to talk about." His response came almost immediately. "Jacob, please Anna. Just once." I hesitated for only a moment before deleting the message and blocking his number. Jacob was my past. I was done looking back. Not long after, Emily convinced me to go out for dinner. "You've spent weeks cooped up in your apartment," she said, pulling me toward a restaurant I'd never been to. "It's time to start living again." She wasn't wrong. For too long my life had been defined by heartbreak. But now, sitting in a cozy restaurant surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. I laughed, really laughed at one of Emily's terrible jokes, the sound foreign even to my own ears. It felt good. It felt right. See? Emily grinned, raising her glass. This is the Anna I've been waiting for. I smiled, clinking my glass against hers. She's finally back. As we were leaving the restaurant, I turned a corner and nearly bumped into someone. Oh, I'm so sore, I started, but the words caught in my throat. The man in front of me smiled. Anna. It took me a second to register his face. Ethan. An old friend from college. Someone I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. I blinked, startled. Ethan. He chuckled, shaking his head. Wow, it's been forever. Emily raised an eyebrow, looking between us. And who is this? I let out a small laugh. An old friend. Ethan's smile softened. We should catch up sometime. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of the past pressing down on me. I felt something new. Excitement. Possibility. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something I hadn't even realized I was ready for. I smiled. I'd like that. And as I walked away, I realized that for the first time in a long time, my story was no longer about Jacob. It was about me. And the future was mine to write. The encounter with Ethan lingered in my mind for days. It wasn't that I was looking for something romantic. God knows I wasn't ready for that. But there was something refreshing about reconnecting with someone from a time when I wasn't defined by heartbreak, betrayal, or the suffocating weight of a failed marriage. Ethan represented a piece of my past that was untouched by Jacob. A time when I had been just Anna, not a wife, not someone's second choice, but simply me. When he texted a few days later asking if I wanted to grab a coffee, I hesitated. Was I ready for this? I wasn't sure. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't want fear to make my decisions for me. So I said yes. The coffee shop was small and cozy, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Ethan was already waiting when I arrived, looking almost exactly as I remembered, his easy smile, his warm brown eyes, the relaxed confidence that had made him so easy to talk to all those years ago. Hey, he said, standing up as I approached. Hey, I echoed, suddenly feeling a little nervous. I wasn't used to this. For so long, I had been tangled in the wreckage of my past, carrying the weight of betrayal and heartbreak like a second skin. But here I was, sitting across from someone who knew nothing about the wounds I had spent months trying to heal. And for the first time I felt like I could breathe. So, Ethan said after we ordered our drinks. What's life been like for you? I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. How do you summarize years of love, betrayal, and rebuilding yourself from the ground up? I got married, I said finally. And now, I'm not. His expression shifted, not with pity but understanding. I'm sorry, he said. That must have been tough. I let out a small laugh. That's an understatement. Ethan didn't pry. He didn't ask for details or force me to relive painful memories. He simply nodded as if acknowledging that pain was something we all carried, and we didn't always have to explain it. Instead, we talked about other things, college memories, places we had traveled, books we had read. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I had a conversation that wasn't about heartbreak. It was about life. About living. That night as I walked back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. I didn't have to look to know who it was. I had blocked his number, but I still received his emails. This time the subject line was simple: I miss you. I stared at it for a long time, my chest tightening. Once those words would have shattered me. Now they only made me feel tired. Jacob had made his choice. He had built a world that didn't include me, and now he had to live with that. I didn't need to hear his apologies. I didn't need his regret. I had something far more valuable now. Freedom. And I wasn't about to give that up for a man who had once asked me to share him. So I deleted the email without reading it. And just like that, Jacob's hold on me slipped away completely. Looking forward, a few days later, Ethan and I met up again, this time for dinner. It wasn't a date. Not officially anyway. But there was something different about the way he looked at me, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Respect. Admiration. Curiosity. Not possession. Not expectation. Just a man who enjoyed my company. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. As I walked home that night, I realized something. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. I was only looking forward. And the future? It felt limitless. The past had defined me for so long: Jacob's betrayal, the pain of losing everything I thought was permanent, the slow, agonizing process of rebuilding myself. But as I sat on my apartment balcony watching the sun dip below the city skyline, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. The scars Jacob left were still there, but they no longer dictated my story. I was free. A few weeks later, as I packed away the last remnants of my old life, I came across something unexpected: a small wooden box at the bottom of a storage bin. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were old love letters from Jacob, notes written in his handwriting, filled with words that had once meant everything to me. Promises of forever. Declarations of love that, at the time, I had believed with my whole heart. For a moment, sadness settled over me. Not because I wanted him back, but because I mourned the woman I used to be, the one who had trusted so easily, loved so deeply. She had been naive. But she had also been brave. And she deserved better than what she had been given. With a deep breath, I carried the box to the trash chute and let it go. Jacob was my past. I was done carrying him into my future. Ethan and I continued seeing each other. It wasn't rushed and it wasn't complicated. There was no pressure, no expectations, just an ease between us that felt natural. He never pushed for details about Jacob, never tried to fix me or tell me how to heal. Instead, he simply listened. One evening, as we walked along the riverfront, he turned to me. "You seem different," he said. "Happier." I smiled, watching the lights reflect off the water. "I think I finally am." It wasn't because of him, not entirely at least. It was because, for the first time in years, I had chosen myself. Months passed and life moved forward. Then one evening I received an unexpected letter in the mail. From Jacob. I hesitated before opening it. I had thought I was done with him, that there was nothing left to say. But curiosity won out. The letter was short. "Anna, I've spent a lot of time thinking about everything that happened. About the choices I made and how they hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness and I don't deserve it, but I want you to know one thing. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And losing you was the worst mistake of my life. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." Jacob. I stared at the letter for a long time, waiting for the flood of emotions to come. The anger, the sadness, the regret. But there was nothing. Just quiet acceptance. Jacob had been a part of my life, a lesson I had needed to learn. But he was no longer a part of my story. I folded the letter and set it aside. Not because I needed to hold on to it, but because it no longer held any power over me. One night, as I sat with Ethan on my balcony, he looked at me with a soft smile. "What?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing," he said, shaking his head. "I just like seeing you like this." "Like what?" "Free." I exhaled slowly, letting his words settle. Because he was right. I was free. Free from the weight of my past. Free from the expectations of others. Free to love, to explore, to build a future on my terms. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, it belonged to me.